Welcome to the Sherry Andrea Psychic Empath Show with your host, Sherry Andrea. Sherry Andrea brings her listeners interesting discussions and topics related to empathy, psychic and spiritual development, as well as energy work. She is herself a psychic empath, healer, coach, author, and founder of SherryAndrea.com. Welcome, and here is your host, Sherry Andrea.
Hi, this is Sherry Andrea, and I have my co-host here with me, Stella. Stella, say hello.
Hi, good evening.
And it's something new. I am so excited because Stella is actually a close and really good friend of mine, so I'm really super excited, and I was really happy when she said that she would be willing to be a co-host on the show. And I thought that it would be perfect because having two different perspectives, mine from, my point of view of being the psychic empath, and Stella's point of view from being like the lay person, so that she can have that different perspective. So when we interview guests, we'll have, a good variety of questions from different perspectives. So I'm glad that you're joining us and that you're listening. And if you didn't catch that, my name is Sherry Andrea, co-host is Stella, and we were supposed to have a guest on tonight, Candace Talmadge, who is an author and who teaches people she teaches people practical spirituality, which means using your intuition in day-to-day life. Well, I don't know what happened to Candace. She may be having trouble calling in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and carry on the discussion, and we're going to wait and see if she's going to join us. If not, we'll carry on the discussion because this is a really great topic. And first of all, let me do this for anyone who's listening who, like the term practical spirituality, intuition, spirit guides, for those of you who are listening where those terms you're not either familiar with or you don't have like a good grasp on what is that, basically I can give you an example that will pretty much make it easier for you to understand. And intuition is basically, an example of it is when you're driving on a highway and you just get that feeling all of a sudden like you need to slow down. And you do slow down, and then a couple minutes later, there's police up ahead. And that's you using your intuition to help you and to warn you. It's almost like a little, your own personal little radar warning system. And most people use their intuition on a day-to-day basis. And Stella, do you have any times when you ever have had the opportunity where your tuition kicked in?
Mostly with the weather.
When you're driving?
Right, when you're driving or, even though it's shiny today, why don't I take the umbrella because it might rain or something like that.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I know I've had, intuition. I remember one time where I had intuition where I was getting ready to, I was on my way home and I was passing the grocery store and I had this thought, let me stop while I'm out already, and let me pick up a couple things I needed. And just as I pulled into the parking spot and I turned the car off, I've already got the door open, I just had this thought suddenly that I could do this later. I didn't have to go right now. And then I thought to myself, I stopped myself. And I said, no, that's silly. I'm already here. I go into the grocery store, and, of course, I run into somebody I did not want to run into. So my intuition was trying to warn me, don't go in there.
Right. it's just this feeling in your stomach, like, I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's usually what it is. I mean, you can't even explain it, and that's why sometimes I think you talk yourself out of listening to it. Because sometimes it just doesn't make sense with what you're doing. Like when I said, well, that's silly, I'm already here. I turned the car off. I got one foot out the door.
Right.
Right. So that's like an example of not listening to your intuition.
Right.
So, and then, of course, one of the other things Candace was going to talk about tonight was she was going to kind of relate it to where some of that communication often comes from, which would be your spirit guides. Now, you hear me talk a lot about the higher self. Well, you've got spirit guides as well. So sometimes it is your spirit guides who are helping you. Sometimes it's your higher self that's giving you that nudge. But everyone has spirit guides. Everyone has at least a few. Some people have more than others. And basically, how a person has spirit guides is like, for example, if somebody is a musician, then one of their spirit guides will be their spirit guide that's kind of like assigned to specifically help them with that. If you are into art, you might have a spirit guide that maybe in one of their previous lives they were an artist, and that spirit guide helps you with that. And then, of course, you have regular spirit guides, like you have a message guide. You have various different types of guide. You have a joy guide. There's all different types. And I'm not going to go too in-depth into that, but basically that's what we're talking about, is we're talking about listening to either that inner voice or allowing your spirit guides to help you by listening more and trying not to ignore them and trying not to ignore what you get or say, oh, no, I'm being silly.
Right. Now, let me ask you something, Sherry. Would your angels, our guardian angels, would they be considered our guides too?
Yeah, they would be considered guides too, because a person actually can have an angel as a guide. So, but whether a particular angel is a guide or not, yeah, angels help out in the same way. Some people, just like me, I sometimes refer to them as helpers, because, you say spirit guides, that's kind of limiting it just to spirit guides, because really you're getting help from spirit guides, angels, ascended masters, your own higher self. So I always say helpers, because sometimes the spirit will come in just to help you for a short time with one thing that you're going through.
Right.
And that's not uncommon to have a guide for a short period of time.
Right.
And one of the things that I know Candace was going to talk about, which a lot of people always ask this question too, is getting to know your spirit guides. A lot of people, I think the most common question is, how do I know who my spirit guide is? How do I know what my spirit guide's name is? It's not really important to know your spirit guide's name. They're not like us. I mean, they're not going to get offended because you don't call them by their name. And we go by names, but really a spirit goes by an energy signature. So you don't have to be worried about or hung up on what do I call them. You could, give your spirit guide a name based on just what comes to mind. I remember the first time, I did that. I nicknamed my spirit guide after myself. So I nicknamed my spirit guide Andy, like short for Andrea, and I did that because at the time I wasn't sure if my spirit guide was a woman, a female or a male, which at the time I didn't understand a lot at that time. So I thought spirit guides, I thought it worked just like us, like we're either a man or we're a woman. And I didn't really at that time understand that they're neither. It's an exact divine balance of energy. So they're technically neither female or male. They're a balance. However, we identify with them that way, and sometimes when we do ask them for a name, they give us a name which is maybe female versus male or male versus female. But they're not offended by that type of thing, if we get it wrong, because they're here to help us and they understand that we don't understand and know everything. So it's like they've got the ultimate tolerance and patience. And so all you have to do really to get to know your spirit guide is to just listen to that intuition you get and to get in the habit of not ignoring it. If you get a feeling about something, don't kind of blow it off. Put some thought into it. Stop for a second and ask yourself, why am I getting this feeling? Or why am I getting the feeling to do this suddenly or to go in this direction suddenly? So don't blow it off, question it. But I think that some people, they have a hard time because they're just not sure. How do they know? And that's the whole part of getting to know your spirit guide and getting used to listening to them is basically just trusting that your own intuition that you're getting. You really have to trust yourself, and know that it's okay if you make a mistake, if you get it wrong. But, if you at least try, you'll develop your intuition more and more.
So not necessarily we have to communicate with our guides through meditation then?
No,
which is going to use that feeling.
Right. No, not at all. I mean, you can meditate with the intention of wanting to communicate with your spirit guide, but no, you don't have to do that in meditation. You can just throughout your day, be more paying attention and more in a listening mode, ready to catch and pick up that intuition you're being sent or that thought that suddenly pops into your head.
Right.
Because you're being communicated with all day long, every day. It's just that most people don't realize it.
Right. So when we have one of those thoughts that they just pop into our minds without a reason, that might be them trying to communicate with us, right? Exactly.
I remember when, this was quite a few weeks ago, my son and my father had went fishing. And the day they went fishing, I was at home and I was working on the computer, and suddenly this thought or vision or something popped into my head that my father fell in the water. And I actually did brush it off, and I was like, no, Sherry, this is your own, it's your own mind coming up with that because, you always worry about them when they go fishing. So for that reason, I blew it off. Well, later on, when I went to my father's house to pick up my son, my mother says to me, as soon as I get there, guess what happened?
Oh,
your father dropped his cell phone in the lake. But that's how I kind of got it. You know what I mean? I got it as him going in the lake. So that's what I mean. It's like you don't want to ignore it, although you want to blow it off because what you're getting may not make sense to you.
Right.
See, I mean, I didn't see his cell phone going in the water. I saw him going in the water. It didn't make any sense to me. Because I mean, they usually fish on a pier. My father, he's very careful. He's fished so many times. So I'm thinking, I don't think he'd fall in the lake. But it wasn't him. It was his cell phone. But that's just how my spirit guides and my higher self, that's how they gave it to me.
Right.
It was just symbols. Maybe there was another piece that they were trying to give me that maybe I didn't get, that I didn't see. So there may have been another piece to it. So, sometimes we also get, we sometimes feel like we got the intuitive message, but sometimes when whatever happens that makes it make sense, you will kind of think, well, maybe I didn't get the whole thing. Maybe I only got part of it, because often that's what it will seem like. For example, if somebody comes to mind, then what happens? Doorbell rings, it's them. Phone rings, it's them. That's a perfect example. And often it could be somebody you haven't thought of in a really long time. And just suddenly they pop into your mind, and the next thing you know, you get a phone call from them.
Now, wouldn't that be the law of attraction too?
Well, it could be the law of attraction also. I mean, because sometimes, somebody will say, oh, well, I've had so-and-so on my mind, haven't spoken to them in a while, kind of worried about how they're doing, and then within days they call. So, yeah, you could say maybe it's a little bit of the law of attraction going on, because they were putting that thought out there of, I wonder how they're doing, in an almost kind of, I want to communicate with them and find out kind of a way.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very, very possible. Very possible. But, I mean, those are common examples that I think that most people, can relate to. But intuition can be, when you're talking about using it in your day-to-day life, I mean, intuition is often used in people's careers. We've heard of, people who are in emergency services, firefighters, police officers, getting a feeling about something, especially them. I'm sure that they have guides that are there to help them out, to try to keep them safe. So I'm sure there are times if they're chasing down a suspect that's dangerous, I'm sure that they're often getting intuitive messages that are giving them clues to which way to go, maybe when to, pull back a little, not to get too close. So in people's day-to-day jobs, if you have a dangerous job, then you are assigned spirit guides that are meant to help you with that. So they're going to be trying to communicate messages that are going to help keep you safe.
Right. What about in relationships?
Relationships as well. I mean, women, I think women are more intuitive than men. And I'm sure you've heard it from girlfriends of yours when they say, they had a feeling that their husband or their boyfriend was doing something or was cheating on them, or that something was going on. They didn't know what it was, but they just have this feeling. He's keeping something back. He's keeping a secret. Something. They pick up on something. Women just are, when it comes to intuition, I think that women are most often a lot better at using that in their day-to-day life than men. I think for women, we're like always on in that way. Even, on the radio show, how many times has somebody called in for a reading that's related, that's a relationship reading, and they said, well, I just have this feeling that, that his head is here, or he's here in the relationship. You know what I mean? As far as thinking and maybe what he's planning to do. So many times, even when people ask for a reading, I'm hearing them say, well, I've just had this feeling, or I do the reading, and they'll say, yeah, you know what? I had that feeling. But see, with that, So I could say, oh, but you already knew, but you didn't trust yourself.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's just, it helps to hear it from someone else sometimes, because with intuition, a lot of times we get hung up on, is there anything to this, or am I just being silly? So it really does help if we're hearing somebody else, validating what we already got.
Right. Maybe because, either lack of experience or lack of self-confidence on, your own intuition, whether it's right or wrong.
Right, exactly. Because, if you're already, having some issue in your relationship, you're probably already at that place where you're feeling a little unsure.
Right.
So that just kind of rolls over. And then when you get that intuition, you're already in a place where you're kind of feeling unsure. So you're not just all of a sudden going to wake up one day and go, oh, no, I'm absolutely sure now. No, you usually, it kind of throws you, you get thrown off already, and now you're kind of thrown off even more because now you don't know, should I listen to my intuition or not,
Right.
But, you should always listen to it. Because, I always think there's no harm in being wrong. Yeah, sometimes the other person that's involved, sometimes they may get offended because you didn't trust them. But that's something that you can work on, because obviously there must be something that needs to be worked on. You know what I mean? If you're at that point. So obviously, trust is obviously an issue. So, but, and I think that's what holds people back a lot too, is that if it involves another person, they don't want to offend the other person. They don't want to make things worse by upsetting the other person. And so they try to hold off really listening to that intuition and taking action on it. It's hard to react to intuition. Being on the highway and slowing down, that's easy intuition to follow, because that's not going to hurt anything. If we slow down, we're not going to offend anyone.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if we're talking about now a relationship, anything that involves another person, now we're going to be worried, okay, how do I approach the person? How do I say what I want to say? How do I ask them about this? Am I going to offend them? Are they going to get mad? Is this just going to make things worse? So it's very difficult when we're talking about using intuition to help you in dealing with another person, whether it's a relationship, your boss at work, it doesn't matter who it is, a coworker, it's very hard when you're trying to react with that intuition.
Right.
But, that gives you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be also a developing psychic. Because a developing psychic for a period of time is learning to trust their intuition, learning to trust the messages that they're getting. And it's very difficult. Trust is, trusting your own self, what you're getting, is a very difficult thing to do. So that's the most important thing. The most important thing that anybody can do is just at least consider, take time to consider what they're getting, to consider the possibility that it may be something.
Right.
And I think that it's great if you use intuition, in every part of your life, including, work, because, it comes in handy. Because, who wouldn't want to know, to get intuition that tells them, stay away from your boss today because, maybe that day something's going on with him and you just intuitively get this feeling to keep a little bit of distance from that person. And often it's because you're picking up that energy from them that they've got something going on.
Right.
I mean, that happens a lot in relationships too. I mean, well, tell me, Stella's married, so tell me, when something is going on with either one of you, how easily do you guys pick up on that something is up with the other?
Almost immediately. Like, it's so easy, like, to pick it up.
Now, imagine somebody who really they don't use intuition. They're not really paying attention to and picking up that energy that person is oozing out. And I've had many friends that have been in relationships with people like this, where it's very frustrating for them because they're always like, he never seems to know what's going on with me. He never seems to be able to pick up when something is like seriously wrong. It's like, is he not paying attention at all?
Right.
And so there are some people who they're not using any intuition. They're not picking up on energy, nothing. There are some people where you literally have to tap them on the shoulder and go, hello, did you notice? I'm like upset, I'm in the room crying.
Right.
So, it's there are people who, I say everybody has intuition. It's just that some people are not listening a lot more than other people. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So, if you are, like, say, for example, you're a woman and you've got pretty good intuition, but yet you're married to someone who they're on the total opposite end of the scale. They never know when you're happy, when you're sad, when, you're upset, and they don't seem to have any intuition at all. Really the best thing to do is not to end up, getting upset about it and keeping it to yourself, but, help them get better at it and bring it out more by not being so mad that you just don't say anything and you're just mad, but actually telling them, verbalize it. And then before you know it, maybe they will start picking up those clues because you've kind of helped them out. You've jump-started them and got them going. So that's the best thing you can do is to, verbalize it. Don't just, be upset that the person didn't pick up on what, the energy you were putting out. Help them bring their intuition out more. I one time, I don't know, I was reading, I think, someone's blog, and it was a guy who had written it, and he was saying how he was driving home on his way to the grocery store, and all of a sudden, something, like, really odd came to mind, like, I don't know, like, it was something like, it was a farm animal. It was like a cow or something, and him and his wife, I guess, were very good at using their intuition. And the wife actually had been thinking about how she should have called him and told him to stop at the grocery store and pick up milk or something. And so he actually paid attention to that intuition and went to the grocery store and got milk. Now, that's somebody who is like literally, they're paying attention and they're trusting it. They're not stopping themselves by being worried about whether they're wrong. Because what if he had come home with the milk and they already had milk? It wouldn't have been the end of the world. So in using your intuition and listening and in going with it, you bring it out more. You develop it more. So I think that, everyone is really, really good, when it comes to using intuition. Well, when it comes to having intuition going on. You just have to work on paying attention to it. If you just imagine and think, okay, it's already there. It's already there. It's already going on. I'm already getting intuitive messages. I just have to practice and get used to picking up on them and actually listening to them. And in a very short amount of time, if you make a conscious effort, it's like in a short amount of time. Within a couple of weeks, you'll notice that you've gotten so much better at it, that you'll be getting intuitive messages about, just things in your daily life left and right that are going to help you.
Right, just by following whatever you feel and making sure that you act on it.
Exactly.
And then you see the results, whether you were right or wrong, right?
Right, exactly. Like not being afraid to act on it, not being afraid, and feeling like you're being silly. And I think that another way that you can help bring it out, which is something that I used to do, is for quite a few weeks straight, I would ask questions, and I would just ask, I might be driving a car, and I would just ask the question out loud. So there's something that I was wondering. I would ask the question out loud, and then I would practice waiting to hear or get the intuitive message about it. And now, this is the thing, though. Some people think if you ask a question and you don't, they're looking to get an answer right away. What I would do is I would just tell myself, okay, I put the question out there, I asked the question. Now, in the next couple of days, I know I'm going to get the answer to this question. You have to actually believe it. If you want to use intuition more consciously like that. And
right.
Then you'll notice the more you practice something like that, then the quicker you pick up on the message, because it's not that I don't want to make it sound like you put the question out there and there's like a waiting list or something and they get around to your question when they can. That's not what I'm trying to say, because I can guarantee you if you put the question out there and ask the question, you got the answer right away. You just may not have picked up on it, heard it, picked it up right away.
Right. Could you use your dreams to get your answers?
Yeah, you could easily, use your dreams if you usually dream, or dream often, and then you could ask the question before you go to bed, and then when you wake up in the morning, jot down your dream or type it out in the computer, and then kind of decipher it to see, okay, what are the symbols that I got in the dream? What are they trying to tell me? And usually there's some key symbols that are, that'll really stand out, that, once you look at maybe those 2 or 3 symbols, you'll kind of see what kind of answer you're being given.
Right.
Also, but sometimes people will have a question on their mind, put that question out there, and they'll get answers in other ways. They'll start seeing certain numbers. Certain birds all of a sudden will, try to get their attention, or certain insects. I get a lot of people leaving comments on my blog because I have quite a few posts that are about like the number 555, 7, 6, so 4s. And so I do get quite often a lot of people who are commenting and saying, yeah, why am I seeing 4s all the time? And to the point where you can't miss that, something or someone's trying to get your attention, because it'll be like, oh, okay, I saw 444 on the clock. Then I go to the store. The amount that they told me I had to pay was $4.44. Then maybe I went somewhere else and I'm driving, and the number on the car in front of me, there's again 3 4s in it. So a lot of times it happens like that, and it's like you really can't miss it, because it's really being thrown at you repeatedly because you asked the question. maybe you didn't believe you were going to get the answer, and which often, that's what I'll ask people. Sometimes if it seems like they're trying to be told something, I'll ask them, what is it that's been on your mind lately? What is it that you've been, maybe some question, something that you've been wanting to know, that you've been thinking about, and question you've put out there? Because a lot of times they'll find the answer to, why am I seeing these symbols repeatedly? Or like, the common one, 555, which is about change. So often when people say to me, I've been seeing 555 a lot, and I'll ask them, what's going on in your life that you're like something you've been thinking about making a change to? Have you been thinking about moving, switching jobs? And that's always it. They're always like, well, yeah, I was thinking about doing this, or I was thinking about moving here. And, you usually it's because they put that question out there of, is this a good idea? And so then the answers are going to come to you. The fact of the matter is that if you're not listening with one of your senses, your guides, your helpers will try to give it to you in a way you can pick up. So, if you're not good, if you're not good at listening to your intuition, they'll try to give you the answer in one way, shape, or form. And sometimes it is like in a dream where you'll get a repetitive dream that you keep dreaming the same thing. I mean, I'm sure that's happened to you too, Stella, where you have like a dream where you're like, I keep having this same dream.
Right. They're trying to show you something.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly. But with a repetitive dream, it's not just, I'm there, I'm getting the message. No. If it's repeating, that means it's very important. It's gonna keep repeating until you pay attention to it and until you listen. And until you take action on it. Because if it's a repetitive dream, then it's very important. That's why it's repeating.
Right.
And so, it's the same thing with when you get messages coming by way of animals or insects. I can recall somebody writing into the blog asking a question about, spiders. And when that happens and somebody has an experience where it's like, there was I went to get in my car and there was a spider on the seat of my car, and then I went inside the house and I went to turn the light switch on and there was a huge spider there. Then I went in another room, there's a spider there. Once I get like all the information about, like, if they tell me the size of the spider, because size does matter. That was supposed to be a little joke. So, I might ask them, like, what kind of spider are we talking about? And sometimes they'll say, oh, well, they're little spiders, or, they've been big spiders. That's actually a part of, like, the symbol, the size, the color, where you've seen them at. If you keep seeing them in your house, then that signifies that it has something to do with the self or with the body. And then in your bedroom, now we're talking about something that's very close, maybe personal, and something that's maybe a little bit more private and intimate for you. And I could remember once the guy gave me all the symbols, I said to him, I said, is there some woman in your life that has been trying to persuade you to do one thing and then you want to do another? Because, and I can't remember all the symbols that he gave me, but the point is that he asked me, okay, well, how do I make the spider thing stop? And I told him, well, once you understand the message and then you, like, act on it, you do something about it, the spiders will stop coming.
Huh.
So, I mean, a lot of people, get that with, different animals, different, insects. And it happens. It just depends on whether you're paying attention or not. Because it's so easy. And that's the thing. If you want to get good at using intuition, you have to understand that it is so easy for us to, like, always get wrapped up in our day. We get busy. And, do we really always have the time to really kind of sit back and ponder something we're getting? And the answer is no. So a lot of times just how busy your day is may keep you from really listening to your intuitive messages like you would want to. So you just have to get really good at telling yourself, no, let me at least stop for 1 second and pay attention to this. And that's kind of what it requires of you, is that you kind of stop and slow down just long enough to pay attention to what you're getting.
Right.
So, using intuition, it can be thought of as being easy and hard at the same time. It's only difficult if you let it be. It's only difficult if you if you have a hard time listening and believing and trusting in what you're getting. Then, of course, it's going to be a little bit harder. But over time, you'll get better at that. Over time, as you get more and more intuitive messages that you pick up on and you do listen to, that show you, hey, yeah, I was right. Then you build confidence, and then you'll listen to it and trust it more and more. So, you don't want to right off the bat be thinking, I'm starting this today and I'm going to be, an expert at this tomorrow. You want to give yourself time, to build up your confidence and everything, because listening to intuition isn't always easy for some people. Some people are a natural at it, right? And like I said, women are the best at it. But then for other people, it's hard, because for some people it's always after the fact, that they're going, I had the feeling and I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't listen to it. But I had the feeling of that.
Right.
Well,
that's when the I told you so
right.
comes into picture.
Right, exactly. Oh, I should have listened. Like when I went to the grocery store. Oh, I knew it right away. When I saw that person that I didn't want to say, I probably had this weird look on my face too. This look that just said, oh, crap. So I'm sure I had this look on my face, because when the person saw me now this is what's funny, when the person saw me the first time, I passed them in an aisle and they didn't recognize me right off. But no, I didn't get off so easily. So I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I get it now. Now I understand what I was trying to be told. So I got what I went in there for, which I think was coffee. And I drink coffee all day long, so of course I'm constantly running out. But so I got what I went in there for really quick, and I quickly made my way to the register, because now my thinking is, let me just pay for my stuff and get out while I can. And wouldn't you know, this person gets right in line behind me. So, when things like that happen and then we're kind of kicking ourselves, it actually does help you, with the learning to listen more. Kick yourself a couple of times like that and you'll start paying more attention.
Wow.
So, can you think of, Stella, any other examples of, like, when people get intuition to do something or to not do something?
I don't know. Now that we talk about it, it used to happen a lot to me when I used to go to college. In college for an exam, let's say, I had the feeling, like the last couple of days when you're just reviewing everything, like books and books and books,
Right.
and you just have this feeling that, I think that these teachers can ask me for this, or I'm going to have to talk further on this particular topic. And especially when
Right.
you're running out of time and you have 5 books that you were supposed to read, and you only have time for 2.
Right.
So,
Right. And then I think that's when, I think that probably also what happens when a lot of people go off to college and they start college is that one of their guides is helping them with that, or they're getting another guide that is like their guide that's assigned to help them with all college things. So I really do think that even with something like, going off to college, or even somebody who decides to join the service, I think that they get assigned another guide that's going to help them specifically with that and the things that they'll have to deal with. So I think you had a college guide.
yeah, most likely. Thank God for them.
I know. You probably, I could only imagine you probably had a guide that was like maybe, they maybe lived several lifetimes, and so many lifetimes they went to college, and maybe they studied some of the same courses that you were studying. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I can imagine that you not only got a guide that could help you with college, but you probably got a guide that was somebody who in a previous life was familiar with either the subjects you were taking or your degree program overall.
Yeah, right? Wow.
So, it's great when you're more aware of that, because then, I think you kind of unconsciously will use it more if you're aware that you've got someone that's been assigned to help you with certain tasks you're doing.
Right. Now it makes sense.
Right, exactly. And then earlier we had talked about, the example of somebody who gets the feeling, not to take a flight. Like they get to the airport, they're already at the terminal, and they just get that feeling not to take that flight. And the funny thing is that, it's hard to listen to that, but how many times have we heard stories from people where, even though it was probably difficult for them to listen to their intuition in that case, but they did. And it would be so great, to be able to take a poll of, for people who are like frequent flyers, like how many times did you get an intuitive sense like not to take a flight and you actually listened?
Well, sometimes when there are those airplane accidents that, hundreds of people die, usually the day after on the news, they just get on, they interview somebody that was supposed to be on that plane, and for some reason they didn't take it.
Exactly.
They just didn't board it.
Exactly.
And that happens a lot.
Oh, and then the people who actually missed it, they didn't get it.
That one too. Right.
Something happened, something came up, where they missed it somehow. Oh, my car broke down on the way to the airport, or they got stuck in traffic, but for some reason they couldn't make the flight.
Right.
And I do think, that I don't know what you think, but sometimes I think things like that happening are also what make people feel like, oh, well, when it's not your time, it's not your time. When it is your time, it is your time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 100%. Because there have been times where, me and my son we have plans to go somewhere, and this happened just like a couple weeks ago. We had plans to go somewhere, But something happened at the last minute that took us a little bit longer to get out of the house, and it was something very unexpected. But then when we finally left, there was like a bad accident, on the road we were going to be traveling on. And if we had left when we were going to, at about the time that accident happened, we would have been at about where that accident happened at. And I remember saying that to my son. I said, if we hadn't been, held up leaving the house and left the house a few minutes later because we had to go back inside and do whatever, we could have been involved in that accident.
Right. So that would be helping.
See, I'm not really sure if I would still call it intuition, but I mean, it's definitely, I feel, your helpers, your spirit guides helping you out.
Right.
I definitely feel like, they've got a hand in it in creating a scenario to help you. You know what I mean? Like suddenly you can't find your car keys. When you're a person who's very good and conscious about where you put them. I'm sure you've always heard people say, I couldn't find them and I always put them here. And they're not here. That one, you know what I mean? That one time you're like, I always put them in a certain place and this one time I didn't do that. So I think that sometimes we do things like that, and it's less us doing it and a little bit more, our spirit guides, helping us out.
Right.
And now, before, the other thing I wanted to mention was, even though Candace didn't make it on the show, what we'll do is I'll find out what happened to Candace and we'll reschedule her because I wanted her to talk about specifically what she does, because she does webinars and workshops where she actually helps people, developing the use of their intuition. And, if you want to go to our website and find out more, the best thing to do is to, on the show window, if you scroll down to the bottom of the description, you'll see the link to our website. And if you go there and sign up for her newsletter, she also occasionally gives out free copies of her book that teaches you how to use your intuition in your day-to-day life, how to meet your spirit guides, and develop a relationship with them, and also how to elevate your self-confidence, which I talked about, that you've got to get used to, like, really trusting yourself. And, so definitely go to her website, sign up for her newsletter, and so that maybe you'll have a chance of getting her book. And then she has information on her website also about, her webinars and what she does as far as groups for, signing up for one of her trainings. And she has various different types of training, including, I believe, one-on-one support as well. Really, really nice lady. And this is something that I think that everybody could benefit from. So, even if, maybe you're a member of a certain forum or a member of my forum, maybe you would want to get together with a few others and, split the cost and let her do a webinar, for all of you. With the technology we have today, it's a little bit easier to, do a webinar where, you can get a group together like that. So definitely take advantage of that. And then I wanted to also talk about our upcoming guest. Okay, so our next guest that we're going to actually, I don't know who's going to be Thursday's guest yet, but next Wednesday, we're going to have this really nice lady. Her name is Psychic T, and her information is already on not only Blog Talk Radio, it's scheduled there with, her information, and she's also got a Blog Talk Radio show. So if you'd like to listen to her show, and then I'm going to be interviewing her so that you can be all ready and prepared to call in with your questions for her, you should do that. And also there's links to her website. And that's going to be on Wednesday, June the 20th. And then on the 27th, we're going to have Jamie the Psychic. And that'll be really interesting because of some of the work that she does, and some of the, she does a little bit of everything. She's a medium. She's done predictions. And you're going to love that show as well. So we've got some really good shows coming up. And, of course, if there's ever a topic or a certain guest that, you would like to see us have, or a certain type of guest, always feel free, to contact us and let us know, and we'll try to make it happen. And, of course, if you want more information on anything we talked about tonight, you can always go to my website, sherryandrea.com, and from there you can either, you can send me a message. Also, there's the forum, and you can get to the forum from a link from my website as well. So if you'd like to have some place to go to talk to others, about developing your intuition, get some help, feel free to go to my forum and sign up. And this has been a really good show. And Stella, I am so happy that you're my co-host.
It's been very fun.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. Instead of just hearing me talk nonstop for an hour like usual, which I usually have no problem with that.
I guess we all know that.
I know. So now you're not going to be able to hear me talk nonstop for an hour straight, and I know you're probably broken up about that. So, but I look forward to, lots of good guests. We're going to be doing the radio show on a regular basis from now on because I didn't do it on a regular basis in the past, and so now you're going to, get a benefit of us doing it on a regular basis twice a week now. The days have changed. It's now Wednesday and Friday. And it's at 10 p.m., so hopefully that's an easier time for, everyone to listen. It's been really great. And Stella, thank you again.
Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and, helping everybody.
You are welcome, and thank you for joining me because it was great. And so we will see everyone this coming Friday, and I look forward to it.
Great.